The topic that's on my heart tonight is asking that question. And what I mean by that question is the question that has just been bothering you for years, but there's a place of switching it where you're asking the question that the Son would ask to the Father. Hi, William. William just tuned in on Facebook Live here. And that will actually get you to a completely different place where you're not a downward spiral of negativity, but you're actually an upward spiral of revelation. And that's really been challenging me the last few days, is to ask questions and pray in such a way as not as problem focused, but focused on what Jesus has won and Jesus has given me, and asking from union out of him, lacking nothing. And this question actually stirred in me last month, where I was down in Ankeny, Iowa, near Des Moines, and this guy named David Fox had said something to me prophetically that hit my heart, and it was, ask the question that the Son would ask to the Father. He said, you're asking the wrong question, because I was just, at a certain point of the day, I was just struggling where it's I'm in my head, and I know I'm in my head, and I had negative questions of how do I get out of this, how do I do this, and asking really the wrong questions. And really what happened is how I got out of that, where I'm just stuck in my head, where I'm like, I don't know how to do this, to where I was just resting in Jesus, is where I started telling about something that God had put on my heart that I got a revelation of. And when I spoke it out, I thought this is something that I'm going to be inspired to do in the future. It happened right then. And it's like, wow, I wasn't expecting that, but it's like I was testifying of Jesus, and I was just pulling on his love and realizing his love, and the thing that I thought was future was actually present. And that's really what the kingdom is like. It's right now. And back to the question topic, something that I've noticed over the years is when I've asked the Lord a question, sometimes I get a different question response because I'm thinking from a completely wrong paradigm. And that's okay to start there, because God can handle that. He's not like, oh my gosh, they're doing it again. They can't get this question thing straight. No, but he's patient, and his hold on, here I'm rocking my makeshift studio. His patience with you will actually cause you to turn your mind toward him. And that's what I realized, where I've asked the wrong questions, but I've gotten a question and response to the Lord, which ended up in a completely different way of thinking. And the way that you know that you're hearing from the Lord and not just hearing from your own mind or you're hearing from another spirit is it'll always hit right here. It'll be like a resonance from the core of you inside out, where it just brings peace to you and it brings freedom, because his words are spirit and life. And that's what I've noticed, even reading the Gospels again, is I've started noticing that spirit and life being released, where I don't quite have all the understanding of what this is truly trying to communicate, but it's like I know that it has life on it. And those sorts of things that you recognize the life of God radiating right here from the inside out, you want to grab onto, you want to meditate on them, listen to them over and over until you get it. Because those are the things where you're hearing the word, and in a continuance, it's easier to grab onto it because it's constantly being put into you. So I'll just leave you with that tonight, is ask God questions and expect an answer, listen from here, and you'll recognize it when you hear it. You may not always know what the answer looks like. Oftentimes you don't, and you have to surrender that in order to hear, in order to listen. Because, if you're always asking the question out of pride, is, well, I already know that answer, but it's not setting you free, then really you need to let go of that pride, because God's going to give you grace. And grace is a lot happier than pride. Grace is a lot better than pride. It's so much more empowering, and it's from him, most of all. And then the grace is that love that just builds you up. And that pride isn't of substance, it just puffs up. But that grace is enduring, and it's stable. And I know something, grace has been a word that's, I I used to be afraid of. I thought, oh, you can have too much grace. You don't want to be like those gracie weirdos that are greasy gracers. And really, grace is a whole lot slipperier or better than I thought it was. And it's freeing, it's liberating. Just reading in John about, you shall know the truth and the truth shall set you free. And they're like, we haven't been bound to anybody. He said anybody that sins is a slave of sin. There's a whole new revelation of sonship coming that we're not seeing scriptures in contradiction, but when you ask God that question of what it means, he explains it to you in such detail, such depth. I mean, just like on the road to Emmaus, where he's with his disciples, he is after the resurrection. They don't even recognize him for the resurrected Messiah he is. And he explains to the scriptures about the Christ, and they're like, yeah, that's it. They're burning inside where it's like, yeah. It's like the eyes of their heart were flooded with light. They finally got it. And that's a good place to be. And the answer from heaven will always look like Jesus. Because Jesus didn't give people pat answers. And sometimes, even if the question was being asked out of the wrong spirit, he didn't answer it, but he definitely spoke to them. Just like the woman at the well, she was asking the wrong question because she was offended and so forth. She's like, well, are you greater than Jacob? Are you greater than Abraham? Or whoever it was that she was referring to who made that well. And Jesus didn't answer the, yep, I am. He just kept on talking. He stayed in the spirit, and that's an important thing, that it's not, you don't react, but respond out of the Spirit of God. And that's where your peace is going to be, where you realize that you don't have to follow all these rabbit trails, but you just listen to the voice of your shepherd. You know his voice. You don't follow the voice of a stranger. And that will lead you with peace. And there's something with the love of God being expanded within you. And the love of God it's more than just a ooey-gooey feeling, although that ooey-gooey feeling often comes with it because it drives out fear. But it's the actual power to give you the whole package of everything that you need, of every part of you. I mean, Jesus became every part of humanity. He didn't just redeem 1/3 of us, because that would be pretty stupid if he did just a partial work. But no, God's word is sent forth. Jesus is sent forth to accomplish everything that the Father had destined for him. And because he did, we are able to live in that today. So ask your questions from that vantage point, the vantage point of the finished work. And if you're not quite seeing it, turn towards the Lord. When you turn towards the Lord, that veil of unbelief is removed. And you just see simply Jesus.